Je suis un prêtre catholique et je suis venu au Rwanda il y a à peu près 26 ans, en 87. Depuis 1992, je me trouve dans l'orphelinat de Nyanza quand le génocide contre les Tutsi a commencé, avril 1994. Le consulat d'Italie ici au Rwanda nous a téléphoné en disant « Père, vraiment nous vous supplions, il faut absolument que vous quittiez ce pays. La situation est vraiment extrêmement dangereuse. » En regardant les personnes qui m'entouraient, les 140 enfants du centre, je me disais toujours un jour que tu écouteras que ces gens ont été tués, tu n'étais pas là, tu n'as rien fait pour les protéger. Et alors j'ai décidé de rester. Nous avons accueilli jusqu'à 50-60 enfants dans une seule journée. Ils étaient des enfants dispersés, qui étaient restés seuls, qui avaient fait aussi beaucoup de kilomètres. Le 22 avril, on a commencé le génocide à Nyanza. Dans l'après-midi, on a commencé à entendre le coup d'armes à feu. Et on a commencé à écouter les cris des gens qui s'échappaient, qui criaient, qui étaient blessés. À un certain moment, il y a des militaires, 4-5, qui sont entrés dans le centre. Et ces militaires m'ont dit, Père, il faut faire le possible pour que les gens de l'extérieur ne viennent pas dans le centre. En tout cas, nous allons venir pour voir toutes les personnes que vous avez accueillies dans le centre et nous voulons connaître leur identité. Nous avons compris tout de suite qu'il fallait aussi leur changer le nom car les enfants étaient vraiment en danger. Alors nous avons remplacé les noms en prenant des noms des enfants qui étaient sortis du centre et en remplaçant les dossiers des enfants, de ces enfants, disons, en utilisant les vieux dossiers que nous avions. Dans l'après-midi, vers 5 heures, il y a une bande d'Interahamwe qui s'est présentée. Je ne peux pas oublier ces gens, ils avaient les yeux rouges, comme remplis de feu. Ils avaient un visage, si on me demande est-ce que tu as jamais vu le démon, voilà, ça c'était le démon. Et ils étaient habillés, sales, remplis de sang dans les mains, dans les habits, les vêtements étaient pleins de sang. Enfin, c'était horrible à voir. Alors nous avons téléphoné au commandant de la gendarmerie, nous l'avons supplié de venir immédiatement nous rendre visite. Nous avons pu lui parler, lui dire voilà, nous nous sentons en danger, si vous pouvez nous protéger, il y a les Interahamwe qui pourraient nous attaquer. La nuit s'est passée bien, il y avait 3 militaires que le commandant avait laissés à garde du centre. Ils nous ont dit, Père, les 3 prêtres, ils doivent venir avec nous. C'est ça l'ordre que nous avons reçu. Ils ont quitté le centre à 6 heures du soir en amenant les prêtres avec eux. Le lendemain matin, on écoute les gens qui disent que les prêtres ont été tués. Cette nouvelle, vraiment, ça m'a pris le cœur, ça m'a touché très fortement. Le jour plus dangereux, ça a été le 29 mai, quand il y a eu une bataille tout près de Nyanza. Le lendemain matin, le front patriotique est arrivé, il a vu des enfants qui étaient ici, qui étaient à peu près 820 en ce moment. Ils ont dit, mais qu'est-ce que vous faites ici? Nous sommes chez nous, ça c'est notre centre, c'est un orphelinat.
Yari afite ubushobozi bwo kuba nawe yakora nk'abandi bazungu akagenda kuri airport agafata indege akitahira. Nta kintu yarwaniraga, nta mwene wabo yarwaniraga hariya.
Parce que si, évidemment, je savais qu'ici, il y avait quelqu'un d'autre qui pouvait s'en occuper, qui pouvait les protéger mieux que moi, bon, qu'il soit le bienvenu, hein. Mais il n'y avait personne. On était dans le danger le plus total, donc je me sentais vraiment responsable d'eux. Je me souviens d'une fille, petite fille de 8 ans. Elle avait passé 3 jours dans la fosse des cadavres. Je me souviens que pendant 3-4 mois, elle ne parlait plus. Elle avait perdu la faculté de la parole. Il y avait 600 enfants, mais quand ils mangeaient, vous ne pouviez pas écouter un seul mot. C'était le silence total. C'était un silence de douleur. C'était un silence de souffrance. C'était un silence de preuve. C'était un silence d'une humanité qui avait été blessée. Ce qui s'est passé ne doit jamais plus se reproduire. Pourquoi? Parce que c'est l'humanité qui est perdante dans des situations pareilles. Ce n'est pas les Hutus, ce n'est pas les Tutsi. C'est l'homme qui va perdre.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and colleagues, good afternoon. It is my honor to welcome you to the ceremony marking the 24th commemoration of International Day of Reflection on the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. Please use your earpieces for better sound. French-English interpretation is available on one of the channels. I would like to offer a special welcome to the Rwandan survivors who have joined us here today. We are especially humbled by your presence. The video we just saw is a moving reminder of the horrors of genocide and the need for the international community to do more to prevent such crimes. The United Nations observes this commemoration every year so that the world does not forget one of the darkest chapters in human history. Our thoughts go to the victims of the genocide against the Tutsi, during which Hutu and others who opposed the genocide were also killed. Our thoughts also go out to the thousands of people who still suffer from the consequences of this tragedy, including the children, now grown up, who were left orphaned, as well as the widows and the thousands of victims of sexual violence. We pay our deepest respect to them all. In addition to this event here at UN headquarters, the UN is organizing commemorative activities around the world this week, including in the Republic of Congo, Kenya, Madagascar, Senegal, South Africa, Switzerland, Tanzania, and Zambia. I would like to start today's events by inviting our speakers, the Secretary General, His Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres, the President of the General Assembly, His Excellency Mr. Miroslav Lajčák, the Permanent Representative of Mali and Chair of the African Group, His Excellency Mr. Issa Komforo, the Permanent Representative of the Republic of Rwanda, Her Excellency Mrs. Valentine Rugwabiza, and Ms. Console Nishimwe, survivor of the genocide, for each of you to light a candle in honor of the victims of the genocide in Rwanda. May we all now stand, please? And observe a brief period of silence in honor of the victims of the genocide. Thank you. I am now honored to invite our first speaker, His Excellency United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, to make a statement. Mr. Secretary-General, you have the floor.
Mr. President of the General Assembly, Your Excellency Mrs. Valentine Rugwabiza, Permanent Representative of the Republic of Rwanda to the United Nations, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by offering my condolences on the death this week of a Rwandan peacekeeper in the Central African Republic. 8 other Rwandan peacekeepers were wounded, and I wish them a speedy recovery. Peacekeeping is a noble, necessary, but dangerous mission, and the sacrifice and risk peacekeepers endure is always at the forefront of my thoughts. And it is particularly commendable that the nation that has endured the worst atrocities should risk its soldiers to ensure those atrocities cannot happen elsewhere. Ladies and gentlemen, today we remember all those who were killed in the '94 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. The men, women, and as we have just seen, even children who were systematically and brutally murdered were overwhelmingly Tutsi, but included Hutu and others who opposed the genocide. As we honor the dead, we also reflect on the suffering of those who survived this dark chapter in human history. Let us today unite in renewing our resolve to prevent such atrocities from ever happening again. And let us also draw much-needed inspiration from the survivors, including the thousands of women who were raped and bore children as a result. When I visited Rwanda in my previous role as United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, I witnessed the unbreakable spirit of the Rwandan people, their yearning for peace and their commitment to rebuilding their country. They have shown that reconciliation is possible, even after a tragedy of such monumental proportions. Rwanda has learned from the events of '94, so must the international community. States have a fundamental responsibility to protect their people from genocide and other grave violations of human rights. And I'm deeply concerned about the rise of racism, hate speech, and xenophobia around the world. These base manifestations of human cruelty provide the breeding ground for far more evil acts. Today, people are being killed, displaced, and abused in many parts of the world. In Myanmar, Rohingya Muslims have been killed, tortured, raped, burnt alive, and humiliated solely because of who they are. In Syria, continued escalation in hostilities after 7 years of conflict has led to unimaginable violence and suffering. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, violence has forced 4.5 million people to flee their homes in the past year alone. Preventing genocide, crimes against humanity, and other serious violations of international law is a shared responsibility. It is a core duty of the United Nations. Our Human Rights Upfront strategy and several UN mechanisms aim to do just that, protect people's lives and sound an early warning before abuses turn into atrocities. And my special advisor on the prevention of genocide plays a crucial role. But warnings are effective only if followed by action. And this year we are marking the 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. Some 45 UN member states have still to join the Genocide Convention. Ratifying it is a matter of moral obligation. And today I call all member states that have not yet done so to become parties to the Genocide Convention by the 9th of December this year, when we will commemorate the 70th anniversary of its adoption. And I call on all states to back their commitments with action. To save people at risk, we must go beyond words. We must nurture the courage to care and the resolve to act. Only by meeting these challenges can we honor the victims and survivors of genocide and ensure that what happened in Rwanda 24 years ago is never repeated anywhere ever again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. It is now my honor to invite the President of the General Assembly, His Excellency Mr. Miroslav Lajčák, to deliver his remarks. Excellency, you have the floor.
Your Excellencies, Mr. Secretary General, Ambassador Rugwabiza, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. There are many things to say today, but I want to start with the simplest and hardest message of all, which is that we failed. We failed. We failed Rwanda. We failed to keep our promises. And simply, we failed to do our jobs. The United Nations cannot run from this. We must face it head on. And all of us must recommit to never let it happen again, which is what we are here to do today. I want to thank the Permanent Mission of Rwanda and the United Nations Department of Public Information for organizing this commemoration. And in particular, I want to welcome Ms. Nishimwe to the United Nations. She is here to share her story. I cannot imagine the courage it takes to do that. And I'm sure everyone in this room feels the gratitude that I do towards her. As we begin today's event, I want to make 3 brief points. The first is a reminder that people should come first, not procedures, not bureaucracy, not politics, but people. Many years ago, I read about the Nyarubuye massacre. As news of genocide spread to this town, people fled to the church in desperation. They believed it would give them the best chance of survival. But they were wrong. Thousands of people died in that church and the surrounding buildings. Many of them were killed in their tracks, trying to escape. Others died trying to protect their loved ones. People spent hours, if not days, hiding, hoping, praying, and waiting. And we were not there to help them. Because, frankly, we were not focusing on them. Instead, we were debating over definitions. We were talking about what we should do, rather than doing it. We were letting our individual positions stop us from making joint decisions. And we were not putting people first. That's why we failed. That's why thousands of terrified people prayed for help that never came. And that's why we are here to remember one of the darkest days in our history and promise that it will never happen again. Here I will turn to my second point on prevention. Because not only we need to focus more on people, we also need to ensure that we prevent their suffering. This means stronger early warning system. It means better mechanisms to flag and respond to early indicators of genocide, including human rights violations. And it means jumping into action much sooner and much faster than we have in the past. I'm not talking about the things to do in the distant future. We must take action now. Warning signs are already flashing. Tremors are already being felt in the ground. All around the world, we are seeing examples of intolerance, discrimination, and hatred. And we simply cannot accept this. Today's commemoration should remind us of what can happen if we do not resist these trends. In Rwanda, hate speech played a role in one of the worst tragedies our world has ever seen. That's why today we need to remind ourselves of how high the stakes are. The final message I want to deliver is one of hope. Yes, we are here today to commemorate and to mourn, but we must also take a moment to be inspired. Horror is part of Rwanda's past. However, its present is one of resilience and strength. 24 years have passed, and Rwanda continues to build itself back up. The reconciliation process has been crucial. Also, the role played by women cannot be overlooked. Rwanda now has one of the highest numbers of women parliamentarians in the world, and the country continues to remind, educate, and inspire us all. Excellencies, to conclude, I want to say this one more time. We failed. We cannot fail again. We know this. We have made this promise before, but we need to make it again. Not just at today's commemorative event, but throughout everything we do here at the United Nations. Thank you.
I now have the honor to invite His Excellency Mr. Issa Konforu, Permanent Representative of Mali, to speak on behalf of the African Group. Excellency, you have the floor.
Paul. Mr. Secretary General, President of the Secretary General, Ambassador of Rwanda at the United Nations, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, ambassadors, I have the signal honor and the great privilege of making this declaration on behalf of the African Group. 24 years ago, we witnessed unprecedented acts of genocide in recent human history. The genocide against the Tutsi was one of the most atrocious acts of human barbarism and undoubtedly the worst in Africa. Nevertheless, it's with profound emotion that the African Group joins the survivors and the entire Rwanda people. Today, we commemorate the 24th anniversary of an indescribable crime. Today is the 24th anniversary of those somber days in Rwanda and Africa. We mourn the victims who died in the most atrocious of circumstances, not because of what they did, but rather because of who they were. Today provides an important opportunity to recall those lost lives in solidarity with the survivors in order to ensure that this act will never happen again in Africa and throughout the world. It's also a beautiful opportunity to reflect on the process of reconciliation and construction in the nation of Rwanda. This is a unique opportunity to commit ourselves never again, in order to reinforce our collective determination to combat the ideology of genocide. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this year the commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsis is placed under the theme Remembrance, Unity, and Renewal. These words have a powerful meaning. Remembrance. Because this is the opportunity to recall that genocide is a crime against humanity, which requires the most severe punishment possible. It should be prevented by all means and strategies possible. Unity. The annual commemoration of genocide is an opportunity to stimulate national, regional, continental, and international efforts against genocide, against the ideology of genocide, and to collectively combat all forms and manifestations of genocide denial. Renewal. Indeed, the annual commemoration of genocide is the opportunity for all Africans, just like other citizens throughout the world, to renew their commitment so that genocide will never again happen anywhere in the world. The annual commemoration is now an opportunity to awaken consciousness among the African populations and the international community regarding the importance of preserving life. In addition, this is the opportunity to collectively commit to the protection and respect of fundamental human rights. Today, Rwanda is a vivid example of what exemplary leadership can bring about for its people. We hail the praiseworthy efforts of the Rwanda people for reconciliation, justice, social cohesion, and the management of inclusive economic and social development. Over the last 23 years, we've heard the testimonies of the genocide survivors. We've been inspired by their courage, showing that reconciliation is possible even after such a tragedy. But above all, honoring the Tutsi victims means working for justice and accountability. Member states have an important role to play in this sense. This is the significance of Resolution 2150 from 2014, unanimously adopted by the Security Council members in the framework of the commemoration of the 20th anniversary of the Rwanda genocide. This resolution, which is so important, unreservedly condemns all genocide denials against the Tutsis and calls upon member states to initiate inquiries to pursue, arrest, extradite, and put an end to impunity among individuals who've been accused of genocide against the Tutsis. Ladies and gentlemen, at a point where we are commemorating what happened in 1994, we should pay specific attention to the challenges to the elimination of causes of political conflict, ethnical, and regional conflicts in our societies. To do that, we need to encourage governments to support African Union efforts to reinforce conflict and prevention and management mechanisms. The African group takes this opportunity to welcome the efforts of the Rwanda people to promote justice, reconciliation, and national reconstruction. We also congratulate Rwanda on its important progress. I would conclude by paying tribute to the exemplary leadership of President Kagame and his government, an exemplary leadership which has allowed for important achievements to take place in his country for the last 24 years. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Excellency.
Two more speakers. I have the pleasure of introducing another piece by our musicians of the UN Symphony Orchestra, playing today variously as a quartet and a quintet, I think. Thank you very much for that beautiful music. I now have the deep honor to invite Ms. Console Nishimwe, survivor and author of Tested to the Limit, a genocide survivor's story of pain, resilience, and hope, to share her testimony.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, fellow survivors here, thank you for coming today to be with us, to remember our loved ones we lost in 1994, genocide against the Tutsi. When the genocide happened, I was 14 years old, very happy, young teen with my parents. And 4 siblings. I was the oldest in my family, and we lived in the western province of the country, which used to be called Kibuye, in a place called Rwanda. So for me, my family was a beautiful family. They were teachers and serving the community. They told me to love everybody, to care for others, but I never thought that the adults in the country were planning the horrible genocide to cleanse the minority Tutsis I belong to. And at that time, for me, my parents, of course, before the genocide began, they've experienced discrimination. And for me, myself, I experienced the discrimination in school. But today, this is the time that I remember myself and my family, all of us going to hiding for 3 months. Within those 3 months, there were so many horrible things happen, and the people who were considered to be our friends, neighbors, they did the most horrible things. And in those times, I remember when we left our home, along with my father, whose name is Ngoga Andre, and my mom, Marie-Jeanne Mukamwiza, and my sister, my younger sister, Jeannette Ingabire, my 3 younger brothers who were younger, 9 years old, 7 years old, and 16 months old. Their names were Hunsi Philbert, Muvara Pascal, and Bonfils Abimana. So we left our home along with our aunts, and we hid. I remember we hid in a home. Someone actually took us in their home because we have to leave our home and go find places to hide. And I remember there were so many people, Tutsis everywhere. Our homes were destroyed, and many homes, and then so many people trying to find a refuge. And I remember one place we were hiding because during those 3 months, you didn't know who was going to be kind to keep you in their home for a long time. And we didn't stay in that home for a long time. I remember the time I felt that we were not going to, things are going to be bad for us for those times. And I remember when we were in the bushes close to the river at that time, and we were hiding, the killers were carrying the machetes and clubs, searching everywhere, calling us cockroaches. And I remember the time, as a kid, as a teenager, you're sitting in the bushes, sorghum plantation, you don't know what to think of. I remember my mom telling all of us to pray within our hearts. And that's the only thing we could do, because I remember, because I grew up in a family that told me to pray, and my mom was strong enough to tell all of us to pray. And as we were sitting in the middle of sorghum plantation near the river, the killers were all over the place searching. And at that time, because the killers were all over the place in the main roads, having roadblocks everywhere, so we had to avoid going through those main roads, so we have to go through the bushes and sit there. So as I remember the chilling words of those killers saying, "Whatever you are, cockroaches, show yourselves." And my mom kept telling all of us to pray and stay together, so if anything happens, at least we'll be all together. And we came out of the bushes because the killers were surrounding the bushes. And as we came out, And then my paternal aunt, she was scared, and she ran, and she was murdered in the bushes. But some of my siblings saw what happened. And the rest of us stayed together. And at that time, there was a young lady who was a Hutu, actually, who lived with us. And she was with us. She refused to go to her parents, and she ran also. Up to this time, we don't know what happened to her. And the rest of us, the killers, surrounded us, and they took everything my dad has in his pockets, whatever money he had. But we didn't know whether we were going to survive. And we had to keep finding places. And I remember one place we arrived, and in this home, because we had to go through the bushes and climbing the hills. And everywhere there were killers, and they were, killing everybody, and all over the Tutsis. And as you can imagine, at the time, there was nothing else happening. It was just killing. So they used to say they were going to work. And I remember this home because my dad was holding my younger brother, Bonfils, who was 16 months old, in his hand. And the rest of us followed. And as we reached in this home, and the young lady, who was sitting outside, and my dad told him, and she told us to follow her in her home, and she took my younger brother from my dad, and the rest of us followed and went inside the house, and they took us in their home up in the ceiling. They hid us in their ceiling in the house. And the rest of my dad had to run in different direction. I will never forget, because that was April 15th. The same day my aunt was murdered. And the killers later around, because they were killing all day, and they came around, and they came outside and talking how many people they have murdered, and they were rewarding themselves with beer and drinking. I will never forget, because my dad, these killers followed him. We didn't know whether he survived. So the killers, and they came outside talking how many people they have murdered and how happy they are, who did better than the other. But I never thought that they were going to say that they have murdered my dad. My dad, who taught their kids. My dad, who was carrying every young person in our town. And now the reward is to kill him simply because he was a Tutsi. And for me, we didn't know whether we were going to survive. Me and my mom heard outside. The rest of my siblings were young to hear what was being said outside. And within those 3 months, killers have done the most horrible things to us. Either we went to some of our neighbors, they called killers for us. Others have done the most horrible things. And I remember, because we were discovered in many places, and my mom would carry my younger brother, Bonfils, on her back. And the rest of us would follow her in the bushes. It was a rainy season. And sometimes we'd be hungry. She didn't know what to do for us. And I remember one time we were discovered because so many horrible things happened. I remember they took my mom, the killers took my mom and with my younger brother. And the rest of us siblings, we stayed in that home, we were hiding. And at that time, because they took her, they were saying that if they take her to a neighbor, maybe some of our belongings the neighbor had, maybe she can give some of the things he had, so that they can let her go. But when they took her to that neighbor, he refused actually to help. This was not only the neighbor, this was someone, for me, I thought it was part of our family, because the young men in that house, my father and my mom together, helped pay him tuition when his parents couldn't afford to do that. And now, when the killers took my mom there, he just took my mom and said, no, I can't do anything for a Tutsi because I won't socialize anywhere anymore. So my mom didn't know what else to do. So the killers had to decide what to do to her. At the end, they took my mom to a neighbor, which was not far from our home. And it was a short distance from our home, our destroyed home. And they left her there, and the rest of us kids, and this man was hiding us, told us to leave. And so I had to take my siblings because, even though I was young, but I had to be, older enough to help my siblings and figure out how to find our mom. Luckily, we're able to find her, which was a long journey to be able to find where she was left because I didn't know whether she was still alive. So for us to get there, we just wanted to be together. Whatever happens, at least, because none of us knew we were going to survive, at least, we'll be all together. So as we got to this home, and already the killers in the town, they knew that we were still alive. And then they started planning to kill my brothers first. And then the rest of us women, they can kill us whenever they want. So, and the plan came, and one of the most really hurtful thing is to see among the killers who was part of the killers coming to, take my brothers to kill them, was someone who grew up with my mom. For me, they were part of our family. It's not like they were strange to us. I grew up, seeing them, and they shared everything. So, and this young man came together with a group of killers. But before they arrived, my mom took all of us together as siblings and taught us to pray, and we prayed together in the room. So at least we believe that whatever happens, if we die, we'll go to heaven. So, and that day, I'll never forget, it was May 9th, and these killers came, and they took my brothers because the rest of us, they didn't want to kill us right away, but we begged to be killed. They refused, and as you can imagine a mom who had been carrying a 16-month-old baby, holding her all the time, and be snatched from her. Imagine what she felt. And they took my brothers. We saw them walking, held each other's hands, and the two of them, Philibert and Pascal, held Bonfils because he was young to even know what was happening. And they said they are going to join Daddy in heaven. And the rest of us, as you can imagine, were crying and screaming. And but we didn't know whether we were going to survive. As you've heard, how women and girls during the genocide, rape was used as a weapon. So many girls everywhere. Tutsis were being brutally raped by several killers. Others were killed right away. Others were held by killers. And I remember one place we went again trying to hide, and this man, and I'm saying because these were not strangers to me. This was a young man who was our neighbor. He came together with a man of that household we were hiding, because this woman actually was kind enough to help me and my mom and my sister. And this man came, he had a sword, and he looked to me and my mom and my sister, and somehow he decided to pull me from everyone. So my mom screamed, my sister screamed, to be killed, all of us. If he wants to kill all of us. And this man of the household refused actually to even stop this man to do that. And fortunately, I was dragged by this man, beating me with the sword, dragging me on the street, and unfortunately, I was taken by him not too far from our destroyed home, and I was raped by him. And he hoped that many other killers would come and torture me more. But by the grace of God, I was able to go back to where my mom was, which was not easy because on the way there, I wanted to find anybody to kill me because there was no reason for me to be alive anymore. And found my mom. She saw what happened to me. Imagine what she felt. Not too long ago, lost her precious boys, and then saw what her young daughter, what happened to her. Imagine what was going through her head. Finally, we're able to keep hiding again, which was not easy. I tried to describe in details in my memoir. Yes, that's when the RPF stopped the genocide also, because before that, we're able to find someone in the Muslim community in our town who hid us, and were able to survive because the RPF stopped the genocide. That's why we were able to survive. So imagine, we survived. That was my mom, my sister, and myself. Many people are family members. My dad, Ngoga, André, my brother Bonfils, Abimana, my Muvara Pascal, Philbert Houssi, they were all murdered. Many of my family members, on both sides, I can count on my fingers how many people survived on my dad's side. And then I was raped, having to live with the consequences now, and later found out that I was HIV positive as a result of what happened to me. Imagine the trauma I was carrying. I never thought that I would be able to even stand here, talk about what I went through. It took me many years, but I felt that I needed to speak about it because it's so important that the world know what you went through. There are so many survivors, fellow survivors, who cannot even now speak what they went through, but I had to speak on their behalf. There is a young woman like myself, a young kid, because I was not even a woman yet. So young kid, women, older women who were raped like myself, or immediately killed. They are now going to speak. I have to speak on their behalf. For me, I feel that it's so important to talk about this because, and those who deny what happened to us, imagine what we feel within ourselves as survivors. And it opens up the wounds and already still recovering for what we went through. And to me, one message I can give to all of you, silence favors perpetrators. And whatever you see injustice, you must speak out. And to me, I don't want anybody else to have the same story like mine, because we all deserve to live in peace and harmony. We all deserve to have the joy and happiness. And I think right now another message I can leave for anyone who goes through difficulties and fellow survivors that has helped me in my life. No matter what horrible circumstances you may face in your life, never lose hope. For losing hope is the beginning of your own self-defeat. And again, I want to remind you that it was a genocide perpetrated against the Tutsi in 1994. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nshimwe, for moving testimony, which brings these events right back to us. It is now my honor to invite Her Excellency Mrs. Valentine Rugwabiza, Permanent Representative of Rwanda to the United Nations, to deliver her remarks. After that, musicians will play a final piece as we exit the hall. Thank you so much for coming today, Your Excellency.
Mr. Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Your Excellency, President of the General Assembly, Miroslav Lajčák, Excellencies, Ambassadors, Permanent Representatives, dear survivors, compatriots, friends. It is difficult to speak after the testimony of Console. Thank you very much, Console, for sharing what you went through with us. We know that in doing so, you leave again the violence. So we appreciate your sacrifice in sharing with us. Every year, on April 7th, we start Kwibuka. Kwibuka is to remember. This year, we mark the 24th commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. And as mentioned by the Under-Secretary General for DPI, events are being held all over Rwanda, all over the world, and here at the UN. We thank you for joining us as we honor the memory of those we lost and acknowledge the suffering, the loss, the courage, and resilience of survivors. I would like to thank you, Mr. Secretary General, for always being with us at this important moment. And more importantly, for showing leadership by being the first Secretary General of the United Nations since 1994 to have named the targeted group and victims of the genocide against the Tutsi at last year's commemoration. In Rwanda, we always remember. I would like to thank you, Mr. President of the General Assembly, for reminding us that we should always put people first, not politics, not procedures. I'm especially encouraged today to see many young people in this room. Your presence here today shows your willingness to listen. Our hope is that what you would have heard today will convince you that each one of us has the responsibility to protect our common humanity. It starts by standing for what is right and speaking up against what is wrong. The theme for this year's commemoration, Remember, Unite, Renew. As we gather here today to remember, it is only fitted to recall that this annual commemoration at the UN is of special significance. Earlier this year, on January 26, in this very hall, the UN General Assembly adopted the decision A72L31. That decision established April 7th as the International Day of Reflection of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. In doing so, the United Nations General Assembly decided to name the group targeted for extermination and total annihilation during the genocide. Stating the truth of what happened in Rwanda in 1994 during the genocide is central to our reconstruction. It's central to Rwanda reconciliation. We know far too well that the decision not to name the victims of genocide is never accidental. It is always intentional. The intention is to deny the truth of what happened, and in doing so, deny the humanity of the victims and survivors on one hand, and on the other, deny the responsibility and obligation of accountability of the planners and perpetrators of the genocide. The genocide planners, ideologues, and perpetrators have no doubt about the facts and about the truth. They know what they planned, and they know what they did. Their strategy is to create doubt in the mind of the general public, despite the enormous evidence and documented facts. Let me say that we are not proud of our tragic history, but we know that we can't escape it. We have had and continue to live and deal with its consequences. We are determined to continue to learn from it. telling the truth of the genocide against the Tutsi, with all its painful memories, has been central to our healing process. It has been central to rebuilding our togetherness as Rwandans. What happened in Rwanda in 1994, as you heard from Console, was a genocide carefully planned and meticulously executed during 3 months. During 3 months, men, women, children, babies of 15 months were hunted down, killed in the most cruel manner. Nobody was spared. No opposition to the extermination of the Tutsi was tolerated, not even from those who were in position of power. Any politician opposed to the extermination project, including those not belonging to the targeted group of Tutsi, were summarily executed. This is the case of our late Prime Minister, Honorable Agathe Uwilingiyimana, who was killed on the first day of the genocide, on 7 April 1994. At every commemoration in Rwanda, we commemorate the politicians, such as late Honorable Agathe Uwilingiyimana, who refused to betray the traditional Rwandan values of sacred respect for every life and protection of human dignity. We are proud to have had such principled political leaders, even at the worst time of our history. Today, on 13 in Rwanda, she was among those commemorated with other politicians. We honor and commemorate them as Rwandan models for the courage. We don't commemorate them as moderate Hutus. On this International Day of Reflection, let's take a moment and reflect on why it took 24 years for the members of the United Nations to state the known and name the Tutsi as the target of extermination, despite all evidence available. And I think we know the response. We know the response after the statement of the President of the General Assembly. We know that despite the testimonies of survivors, witnesses, and in the case of Rwanda, we have hundreds of confessions from perpetrators. To be able to respond to that, we need to look back. And remember also that while the genocide against the Tutsi was being executed in 1994, the body entrusted with the maintenance of international peace and security was more preoccupied with preventing the use of the word genocide than stopping its execution. Denial of the genocide started even while it was being executed, and it has been pervasive since then. This is why remembering those we lost, listening to the testimonies of the survivors, is central to the fight against genocide denial. I would like to mention another part that is central to genocide, to fighting genocide denial and ideology. And this is accountability and justice. We thank many nations, many countries all over the world who have been sending genocide perpetrators and convicts back to Rwanda to face justice, or who put themselves to justice. I cannot, even this very week, Denmark decided to send back a genocide perpetrator to face justice in Rwanda. However, we also have to confront the issues and difficulties we have with international justice. The International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda played an important part in contributing towards holding to account some of the masterminds of the genocide against the Tutsi. However, the substantial investment that went into making the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda function and achieve what it did is systematically being eroded by politicizations of justice, by the mechanism of criminal tribunals that succeeded it. In the past few years, the mechanism has systematically used the scenario to reduce the sentences and grant early releases to genocide convicts. This scenario has benefited more than 14 genocide masterminds, and this includes a priest who raped and murdered Tutsi that sought refuge in his church. This includes a genocide ideologue who is the founder of the infamous radio, RTLM, Radio de Mille Collines, which was the propaganda instrument used to mobilize the killers during the 3 months. No guarantees were required from the genocide convicts benefiting from early release to prevent them from re-engaging in activities propagating the genocide ideology. In each case of early release, the obligation of transparency and accountability of the mechanism to the UN members, to the UN family, has simply been ignored by its president. To those who continue through their actions to politicize, to trivialize, to really treat in a trivial manner the genocide against the Tutsi, our message is clear and simple. Rwanda's resolve and commitment to accountability is relentless. Rwanda's commitment to unity and reconciliation is irreversible. We are determined to continue to build strong and inclusive institutions that have the trust of all Rwandans. The consolidation of our unity, security, the fight against genocide denial and ideology are far too important to be outsourced to third parties. While we are open and welcome cooperation as Rwandans, we are also very clear that it is our responsibility to ensure the security and the well-being of all Rwandans. It is also our conviction that we have to protect our hard-built reconciliation, togetherness, and transformation of our nation. Our history and experience has also informed our commitment of being a responsible and active member of the international community. This is what informs our engagement in global peacekeeping. This is what informs our engagement and our commitment to the protection of civilians. The Rwanda Defense Forces serving under the UN flag are prepared to pay the highest price of the sacred duty of protecting civilians, just as they were prepared to do so in 1994, when they single-handedly stopped the genocide against the Tutsi in July 1994 under the command of His Excellency President Paul Kagame. We remain forever indebted to them. We remain forever indebted to the Rwanda Defense Forces. Without them, we will not have today survivors like Console to tell their story. In closing, let me just state that the journey to remember, to unite and to renew is a long one. We are thankful to each one and all of you present in this room. We are thankful for your friendship. We are thankful for your support in this journey. Especially today, we are thankful for your show of solidarity as we honor the memory of those we lost and as we honor the strength of the survivors of the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. I thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Excellency, for those closing remarks. full of sorrow and wisdom. I would like to thank all our speakers, musicians, and all of us joining today who mark the 24th commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. The Secretary General offers his apologies that he simply had to leave for a live conversation, which shows us the importance of keeping avenues open today for reconciliation. Thank you, everybody, for coming, to our speakers and musicians. And now, as you leave the hall, you'll hear the musicians again. Thank you so much.
Back again, right? Yeah, it's back again. Did you see the woman trying to stop us from the first? Oh, yeah. And she looked at us. We'll do back again. Let's do it. No, I mean the candlelight. Let's do it, yeah?
Thank you.
Thank you.